Welcome back to the second annual Nat King Cole Generation Hope Educators Conference. Our next clinician is Ms. Rachel Glodo. Rachel Glodo is the program specialist at the Yale School of Music, where she oversees the National Symposium on Music in Schools. She is the primary writer and compiler of the 2018 Declaration on Equity in Music for City Students, which is being used to galvanize in the development of music learning ecosystem across the country. Our most recent project, the 2019 symposium, featured U.S. Deputy Secretary of Education Cindy Martin and was focused on developing collaborative ecosystems that serve and reflect local needs and contexts. A proud resident of New Haven, Connecticut, Rachel enjoys singing with the Yale Camerata, studying the violin, leading a community garden, and being a foster parent of teens. Without further delay, speaking on essential to equity music learning ecosystems, please welcome Ms. Rachel Glodo. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Hi, Edrick. Thank you for that kind introduction. As Edrick shared, I am indeed a program specialist at the Yale School of Music. My role at the school encompasses a wide variety of administrative responsibilities, perhaps even more so since March 2020. Like many of you, I sometimes feel that I deserve an honorary doctorate in remote learning strategies, mask wearing, and epidemiology. Perhaps you all at this point also can sometimes feel that way. One of the things that is part of my responsibilities at the Yale School of Music is the Symposium on Music in Schools, which is part of our school's larger local and national community engagement work. So you have had some, from what I can tell, some very incredible learning experiences these past few days. I caught the end of your previous session just now, and I imagine that your brains are probably full of fantastic information, some new strategies, perhaps, ideas to mull over and to implement. And I hope that you are feeling inspired for the start of the new academic year, at whatever level you may teach or be involved in. So it's my intention to build on that momentum. But before I do, I'm going to invite all of us to pull back just a little bit and to recenter our thoughts and our intentions on why we are here, what we are doing. I feel that being towards the end of this particular conference and learning time is strategic, because it allows you to take some of the things that you've been wrestling with and feeling inspired with and find a groundedness as you approach the end of this lovely Friday. So why are you here? Why have you centered your careers around music education or music learning? Why do you spend perhaps hours inside and outside the classroom preparing and mentoring and practicing and networking and inspiring and agonizing? Why do we attend conferences like this one? And why do we work so hard on behalf of students? I'm going to get my screen sharing going because I want to answer these questions with you all today by centering us on an initial premise. So let me just get my screen all set. Technology is fun. All right. There we go. Okay. Edrick, will you give me a thumbs up if you can see okay? Thank you. Yes, I love it when people are responsive. And if you like to put on your video, please feel free. I know it's a Friday afternoon, so get your energy going and let's dig in together, because this premise is fun. It's interactive. Good luck. I'll see you on the other side. I'm just kidding. Here's my premise for you. Every student deserves access to robust and active music life. Okay. This is a very obvious statement, perhaps from some of you, like, of course, right? Like, every student should have access to music education in some way. But it's a surprisingly pithy statement. And I want to explore why with you. So I'm going to start our first extremely fun interactive session. You are going to go to your phones if you have one. Maybe you were trying to put it aside so you weren't tempted to check out, your favorite corgis on Instagram. But go ahead and pull out your phones, or you can join me using your computer as well. But I'm going to put myself into full screen. Edrick, give me a thumbs up if you can see. Oh, I love it, guys. You're doing great. And so this is a fun little like texting thing that we can do. So if you have your phone, you're going to pull up your messages and start a new message, and you're going to send it to 22333. And you're going to text in Nat King Cole as your like passcode. See what I did there? Was really thinking ahead. Oops, I'm going backwards on my slide. So I'm going to do some brainstorming with you guys. You've thought so much about implementation and strategies and all of these things. And I'm going to ask you now, every student deserves access to a robust and active music life. Why? I suggest short phrases. As you respond, you simply are going to start texting in. We're going to see our responses populate the screen. And chances are there's actually a lot of good reasons. And some of them you might see some overlaps. So as soon as we get some responses going, they'll start populating up here. So give yourself just a little bit to set up. Yes. Oh, I love that you're digging in so quickly. Okay. It's the human side of our education. Ooh, students can express themselves constructively. I love that. To make life more beautiful. And we need that. We need that now more than ever. And you can give multiple responses. Oh, an outlet. I know this is true. I definitely hear student, yes, to be free. I will often hear one of my teen kids singing along and dancing in their room, using music to find themselves. Yep, gorgeous, finding their place in the world. Ooh, the school motivation piece. This is a big one. Connections, right? Social, emotional connections with other human beings in the room, as well as music over time and space. Fabulous. I'll give you just a few more moments to throw in a few. Yeah, why every student deserves. And I use that verb pretty pretty intentionally. All right, this was fabulous. I'll give a 5, 4. Self-expression. Yes, yes, and yes. Gorgeous. Ooh, I'm glad someone pulled out the teamwork. Yeah, and you're also now identifying skill sets, right? Because music has a lot to offer a student or any music maker in terms of transferable skills. And we like to talk about that in arts education research. It's all good. All right, I'm going to declose my full screen and deactivate this particular part because you articulated some really, really great reasons. And all of them actually were really grounded in what I would call sort of like a deeper subterranean layer of belief or value. Some of you may be familiar with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I feel like this is a good frame for us to zoom out, right? Like we went from what happens in a music classroom with a clarinet all the way out to international policy about the world and belief in what humanity is. So as you can see, that right there is First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. And as the United States and the rest of the world grappled with the aftermath of World War II, there were a lot of questions about what it means to be human, what kind of human rights come along with the quality of humanness. And I want to draw our attention, even here on this Friday afternoon, to this quote, because it's going to undergird our further conversations. And I also hope it will take you into this next school year in a way that revives your deep-seated belief in this work. So here we go. The inherent dignity of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. These are big ideas and they're very beautiful. And so I'm going to help us start to pull these ideas into the context of our work around music education and student learning. If you check a dictionary, which I totally did, dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. It's grounded in really big concepts like worth, respect, affirmation of value, self-esteem, esteem by others. But its meaning extends to the very definition of what it means to be human. All humans possess an inherent dignity based solely on the fact that they are indeed human beings. So, and we believe this, but we don't always articulate it. And that's why I'm doing this with you today, is to recenter ourselves, right? So innate human dignity implies innate human rights. And as we're going to explore, the right to enjoy and participate in society and culture is a really natural extension of this relationship. So I'm going to draw our attention to 3 articles from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You didn't think you would be getting, global civics lesson today, but here we go. And each of these picks at different parts of this, of why every student really deserves access to a robust and active music life. So Article 22, everyone as a member of society is entitled to realization of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his personality. I will give the caveat that this was written in 1948, and so you will notice that there are gendered pronouns used. I'm leaving them there as an understanding of their context in 1948, but of course we know that this could be any human being from any type of gender identity. So I just wanted to make sure that we were being respectful of all people, even as we study a historical document. Okay, so cultural rights indispensable for dignity and free development of personality. Okay, so let's check Article 27 now. Everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. Okay, cultural life of the community, including the arts. Okay, and lastly, 26, which says everyone has the right to education. Education shall be directed to the full development of human personality and to strengthening the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship. Now, you will notice that many of the reasons that you gave for why every student deserves an active music life were rooted in these belief systems about humanity. Each person deserves opportunities to participate in social, cultural, and educational spaces and to develop fully as an individual. We know from our experience that an active music life exists at the intersection of these social, educational, and cultural rights, and always rooted in the inherent dignity of every human being. So I just took you to some high-level thinking, and now we're going to tumble back down to earth a little bit and think about what this means now. Students' access then to music education, which we believe is in fact an inherent human right, is going to require the ongoing development of supportive music learning ecosystems. And we'll tease out the relationship between educational, social, and cultural rights and music learning ecosystems. But first, I'm going to confess that this is not my usual office. This is, in fact, my father's office. I am visiting my parents in Florida. Huzzah! Yeah, exactly. Edrick knows. Florida's crazy and fun. I'm mostly from New Haven, Connecticut. I own my home there. I'm technically a New Havener. But my childhood heart and home is in Florida, in Central Florida. So I am visiting my parents and my younger brother. And my mother is an elementary science teacher. And she has been from my entire childhood and through my adulthood. And my mother informed the family, she informed us, didn't ask, that we are going to go on Saturday to Apopka, Florida, where we are going to go along a wildlife drive. And so actually, this sounds pretty fun. So none of us have a problem with it. However, my mother, like a good science educator, is going to want to stop and examine everything. Like, you try to go on like a half-mile nature walk, and 3 hours later, we've seen a lot of nature. So when we're going to be driving along this little like wildlife sanctuary area in the wilds of Central Florida, we are going to be exploring a very specific ecosystem. In biology, an ecosystem is a network of interacting individuals, communities, and systems in which diverse elements are balanced and thrive. So this is going to include stuff like food, yum, space, shelter, safety, genetic diversity, and of course, plants and animals. My mother is also the one who will point out that a healthy biological ecosystem is balanced and diverse. As we're driving along the wildlife route, there will not be just one type of tree or one type of algae, or in the case of Florida, one type of dangerous reptile. Instead, there will be tons of different organisms that are all balanced out together. When things aren't balanced and diverse, in fact, this is when ecosystems have a problem. That's when you get algae blooms, when you get too much of one invasive species that pushes out other animals. An ecosystem is at its healthiest when it's balanced, diverse, and interconnected. So I've gone on a science tangent now because I want to invite you to imagine now a music learning ecosystem. This is going to be the people and the spaces and the places and the communities and the traditions and the systems that support a student's active music life. There are not going to be really definitive borders in a music learning ecosystem, like where stuff starts and ends. And a music learning ecosystem is going to be part of actually larger ecosystems like education, social services, health services, anything that provides support for students and families and communities. So when things are not balanced and diverse in a music learning ecosystem, that's when we actually need to ask ourselves, what is the health of this music learning ecosystem? We need to support access that, in fact, does provide a balanced, healthy, thriving, active music life for each student. So I've been throwing around the phrase an active music life. And what I really mean by that is going to be made of a triumvirate of things. So based on the, again, inherent human dignity of their humanness, every student is going to deserve three things. The first, and this is not in any particular order, notice, the first is going to be out of school opportunities and programs that provide services to students in music and maybe in other creative and social emotional learning areas. It is going to also require accessible, sequential, and robust music instruction in schools. And then lastly, a student's active music life is also going to include what I describe as less formalized or institutionalized music making. And each of these three things I'm going to suggest is actually just as important as the other. Um, and again, this comes back to this idea of balance and of interconnectedness. If our job then is to ensure an active music life for students, we're not just talking about in-school education, although we believe that it is an educational right for students. We're not just talking about a community organization program that provides some kind of music learning, although that's amazing and important. And we also don't just mean that we expect students to listen to music on their iPods and call it that enough for an active music life. Instead, it spans across a student's whole experience at home, after school, at school, and anywhere else they end up. So are you ready to get your phones out again? Yay, good. I'm glad to see a few folks on video, and you look mildly amused at this. We're doing great today. Who and what is in a music learning ecosystem? So let me exit out of, go away there. Let's go to this one. Oh, I just love how the good answers that we had on the last poll. I always feel that I learned something new actually about how music folks envision the work that they do. So thank you for being engaged in this. Okay, so I'm going to activate this one. I'm going to enter full screen. And for this one, I'm going to ask that you use like 1 or 2 word answers, because as you answer who and what are in a music learning ecosystem. Oh, no worries. I'm going to clear that one. Oh, schools. Okay, yeah. Actually, I'm going to do a quick clear of responses just so we can reset. Everyone's good. You don't need to re-enter Nat King Cole. You're already connected with me. We're old hat. All right, go ahead. Begin. Private teachers. Yes. Community organizations. Excellent. Yes. Okay, teachers, period. Yes. Okay, and so now we're starting to see that when you put in repeat answers, the word cloud is going to get, some words will get bigger and smaller. Oh, I love this. Yeah, keep adding, just keep texting in, because I love that you guys have identified teachers and parents, this sort of on the ground experience. Oh, excellent. Yeah. Performers, administration, orchestras, and other types of cultural and artistic centers in a given area. Ooh, local business. Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that people don't often pull out. Now you'll notice, ooh, local venues, that's good. You'll notice actually that students has finally gotten a little bit bigger. I find this a fascinating exercise. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds more. Oh, yes, good. There's some, yes, okay. So organizations, yeah, and community organizations, arts organizations. I saw legislators in there. Yeah, very key. Oh, this is brilliant. Okay, I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. This was wonderful. Thank you for staying engaged with me. You're really doing well. All right, let me get back to where I need to be and restart my share properly. Because I'm also going to optimize now for some video sharing. Okay, and once again, Edrick, I'm going to make you do your thumbs up thing when, bless you. Yeah, good. Yes, okay. So you guys did really, really well. And you kind of first identified, especially a lot of school oriented parts of the ecosystem. Some of this is really basic, but I like that it sort of grows from a sort of a focus and moves outward. So obviously, if you're a music educator or an adult, I'm going to say, in a school in some capacity, and you have your students and you in the classroom. So actually, we can harp on this a little bit more later, but students are in fact at the center of the music ecosystem, or at least they should be. And that's always a good challenge for us. So you sort of roll through from the classroom outwards. Students at the school you might not teach, maybe colleague music educators if you have a large enough school, other teachers maybe in other subjects, obviously principals, administrative staff, and leadership, that site-based leadership. Um, Moving out to your district, you've got your supervisor, maybe a VAPA coordinator, other educators in music, your superintendent, your board of ed. Again, we're zooming out a little bit more to your state direction. Educational standards start coming into this, your state music educators community, NAFME, maybe if you're in higher ed, CMS or NASM. But this is all kind of in a similar cone, as it were. And what I'm going to prompt us to kind of pivot around is that thinking back to a student's active music life that exists outside of the institutionalized school experience of music education, as it were, a lot of music learning and music making takes place elsewhere as well. So this can include things like community organizations, whether it's the Y or a community music school, private lessons and teachers, which you guys quickly identified. I appreciated that. This also includes folks who do music genres, traditions, and practices that are not necessarily taught in school. So whether this is old-timey banjo playing or or maybe more modern, computer composition techniques and beat making, or whether it is traditions that are associated with different language or ethnic identity. They might not take place in school, but they're still going to be important in terms of a student's active music life. And of course, like regional groups. I think sometimes being in New Haven, I get a little bit get my blinders on because I think, oh, what's in my city. And so I've been personally challenged to think a little bit more regionally lately in terms of our local programming. And I then also want to draw your attention to these less formalized music experiences. And when I say less formalized, I thought carefully about whether I wanted to use the word less, because sometimes using the word less suggests that there's a deficit, and that's not true. Instead, but I want to underline that just because something is not institutionalized does not make it any less important in a student's active music life. And sometimes these things actually become more important because they are part of core identity that a child might experience from the time when they are an infant all the way through the entire rest of their life. So this might be with friends and family, places of worship, churches, temples, this technology-based music making, and also just music that they make for themselves, what I call just for fun. And I don't ever want us to accidentally discount this part of the music learning ecosystem. Because just as our previous presenter talked about an assets-based conception of what students are bringing, this is what students are not just bringing into a music learning classroom, but instead it is in fact part of a large interacting network of systems that support students' human need and for the creativity, expression, full development of personality, and those social, educational, and cultural rights. So each music ecosystem then is going to be actually rather local, and I think also maybe a little bit more complex than we often think about in our day-to-day practice. I wrote down some members of the music learning ecosystem, but I realized actually this is a list that I made a little bit ago, honestly, I should have expanded this. And I challenged myself, realizing that I can have an ever learning attitude towards music learning ecosystems based in different localities. And I chose this little graphic here because, again, science, which is a graphic of like a food web. When I was little, we learned about the food chain, right? We're like, the plankton gets eaten by the, oh gosh, sardine, hold on, something like that. The sardine gets eaten by the tuna gets eaten by the shark. It's like, but it's very linear and it's really quite simple. I chose this cute graphic because just like the music learning ecosystem, these are actually much more complex, kind of crisscrossing relationships and connections that students experience in their learning and in their music making. So I am going to, let me check my time, perfection. I'm going to bring us to re-engage with that student-centered experience. And we are going to take just a few moments to watch a video that we created recently for the symposium that we ran at the Yale School of Music that focuses exclusively on students' experience of their music learning ecosystem. Because I've given you these ideas, and it's great that adults are in the room talking. I like that. I like adults. You're nice. But honestly, I could give you a lot of data and ideas, but just as important is this qualitative, student-centered understanding of how this operates in context. So as you're listening to this, I'm going to ask you to make notes, either physical or mental. What sticks out to you? And I'll have just a few questions for us to kind of play around with at the end. I will say that these are all students from New Haven and who are part of New Haven Public Schools and experience the New Haven music learning ecosystem. So they're going to be it's going to be very specific to their locality, to their history, to their demographic, to their socioeconomic experiences, to the urban experience, as opposed to a very rural area. But let's listen to them in their own words, how they are experiencing in real life, this inaction time together. So I'm going to full screen, and hold on. I want to make sure I start at the right point, because we did have a lovely.
And I really like soccer, basketball.
Hold on, my friends and colleagues. Okay, there's our senator, Mr. Blumenthal. He's pretty great, but as he's not a student, we're not going to listen to him. All right.
My name is Elio, and I'm 9 years old. I am just finishing 4th grade, and I really like soccer, basketball, art, and music. Music is that I'm creative about. At home, I like to sing and play the clarinet in my room. Sometimes I make music for my puppy Noah. This year, I was part of a choir that met on Zoom. We were all different ages and different schools. One thing I liked was our teacher, Miss Stephanie, taught us about notes, which was cool because the next day I learned about notes from my school music teacher. One thing I'm really looking forward to next year is being able to play with the other kids in my school in the auditorium. When you play with other people, you can't just go on your own thing. You have to pay attention to what's happening in the group. One thing I like about music is that it calms me down, like I can flow into music. Sometimes I sing to calm down. Music gives me happiness and emotions, and I can go onto my own world.
Hi, I'm Eden. I am 10 years old. I go to Worthington Hooker School. What I feel about music is very emotional, happy, and sad. When I am sad, the music comforts me somehow. I started music at the age of 4 for violin, and then after 1 year, I started playing piano at the age of 5. Music is a very fun thing for me too. For piano, a few pieces make me fly. What I mean by fly is a piece or song that really gets into you. For example, for me, it's Chopin on piano. Sometimes, when I'm done with my practice, I call my mom to listen to me playing Chopin. Then I tell her that I'm going to be a bird and that she should come onto my wings, and I need to play without mistakes or else my mom will fall off. I don't want that to happen. Now, I will talk about the violin. I'm playing a piece right now, a piece that I like very much. It is Spring, from Four Seasons by Antonio Vivaldi. I really like the dynamics that Vivaldi put in, and I like the part where there are birds. They sound so realistic, and I feel very joyful. And in the part where there is thunder, I feel a lot of tension. It is very powerful. The person that has played a big role in my music is my dad. Sometimes he knows that I can do better, and then he really pushes me on that. It's not easy, but I know it's for my music. A lot of people ask me if I like violin or piano better, and to be honest, I don't really have a specific choice. Even though I did start violin before piano, I love them both equally.
Hi, I'm Marnielle. I'm 19 years old and I sing and play the viola.
Hi, I'm Nick Daniel. I am 17 years old. I sing and I used to play the trumpet and clarinet.
And this is our music ecosystem. Yeah. Okay, so this all started in the womb from our mother,
Yes.
Marjorie Charles. She would she would play classical music for me while like I was in her stomach, so that I don't even know why she did it, but I guess she like did some research and thought, wow, this is good for my kid.
It must have been the pastor's wife. Yeah,
probably.
It must have been the pastor's wife. Yeah.
But she only did it for me because I'm the best. And the best. And after that, she just neglected the four of them because there's five of us, and focused solely on me because I am the best.
First, emphasis on the first.
And because there's five of us, and we all just somehow became musically inclined. Like we all ended up liking music and we all ended up singing together, which is really cool.
Yeah. So because we all had that passion, there'd be times when my sister would call us into her room while she's cleaning and she'd turn on the radio. She'd bribe us with the music. It was crazy. Like, hey guys, come help me with my room. My room's dirty. And then we'd be on the PS3, like playing Black Ops. And then we'd be like, no, we're playing Black Ops. And then she'd say, but guys, I'll put on music. And then we were like, okay, fine.
They love dance parties.
Yeah.
We love dance
It was
parties.
really great. A little while later, we formed a group called C5. Our last names are all Charles, and there are five of us, so C5, and it works. It's really nice. Our church doesn't really get it though.
They just call us Le Chal.
Yeah, it's a French-speaking Baptist church, but yeah, it's
yeah. Speaking of French, we from the moment we could talk, we were thrown into the children's choir every Sunday. So not only were we singing songs in English, we were singing songs in French and in Creole. So we aren't fluent because we didn't practice, but
proficient.
We are proficient, mediocre Haitian kids who can sing in Creole well, but can't really speak it.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yes. So after that, both of us were put, all three of us, four of us were put into New Haven Public Schools. And I was introduced to my third grade choir teacher, or I guess music teacher. And she was very, very supportive. We did things like music theory, solfege, everything. And then she introduced me to, I guess, the mother, like our mother of music.
Our choir mother.
Yeah.
The queen.
She really helped us get through everything in music, and is the reason that we are here now. And that's when we were in a group called Morse Chorale. And it's a summer music academy, and it happens during the summer. And there's also
a school year program too.
Yes, that's really where we got the bulk of our.
That was the foundation of our
Right.
group.
Right.
All right. So I want to make sure that we have enough time for conversation and questions. And if you are interested, you can continue to watch not just Marnielle and McDaniel, but another fabulous young person named Ava, who also shares. I'm going to put that into the chat just in case you want to follow up with them. Let's see, there we go. So I believe that everyone can now use the chat openly. It looks like it. Where were the places, the physical locations that some of these students described making music? And if you could put it in the chat or unmute yourself if that's something that you feel comfortable. I don't want to make anyone feel on the spot, but it's 2:42 on a Friday, so you have nothing to lose. Where were these students making music? Home, church, school.
I was going to say
Yes.
home. I was going to say
Yes.
home.
Did you notice that a lot of them said home, and not just because of the pandemic? This was right that they, and you'll notice that if Marnielle and McDaniel will talk more about their school as the video goes along. And in fact, they're both becoming music educators because they're fantastic humans. But yeah, school, home, family, church. Who do they mention as important musical people in their lives? I found this interesting. Who did they mention? Parents. Yeah, you can tell Eden is an only child, and part of her relationship with her parents is with music. Educators, yes, yep, definitely in-school educators. Who else? I'll wait until you list the obvious one. What about Marnielle and McDaniel? Who did they? Yes, family. Yes. In fact, for them, it's siblings. They're like boom, 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 boom. And they now they have all voice parts covered. So they're fantastic. Just wonderful, wonderful, happy singers. Yeah. So family, siblings. Definitely. And I mean, I guess maybe the children's choir leader, maybe at church. A couple of them mentioned sort of like community music instructors, like people who did like out of school community stuff. And actually, I'm going to throw in the cutest one, which was Elio also included his dog in his music learning ecosystem. And that's cute. And we're like, oh, but what it points to is that his lived experience is maybe just a little bit different than what we might have academically listed as part of his music learning ecosystem. So I'm going to leave us with kind of two challenges. One is to just sit in the idea around the idea of how human dignity impacts your daily work, how these big ideas of social, educational, and cultural rights really sift down into what you do each day, as well as your relationships and your perceptions of music learning ecosystems. Your action item is to keep exploring the music learning ecosystem of the students and people that you spend time with. This is a little labor intensive because it involves asking questions and maybe you don't know the answers to things and you have to keep digging a little bit. But until you ask, you might only have about half of their music learning ecosystem sketched out. And so if we listen, observe, immerse ourselves in community, we get a better understanding of how students truly live their active music lives. So with that, I will open questions from Edrick or in the chat or however you all have been doing it.
Yeah, no, I'll jump in. If you have any questions, please send them my way. We'll try to ask as many as possible. But Rachel, I was just thinking, as a former band director myself, as educators, I don't want to add one more thing for us to do. However, though, when we think about ecosystem, I just typically thought my kids coming into my band room and me conducting and we perform, and that's that. But the ecosystem was there where they was telling us, like, hey, a couple of us are going to go to a retirement center and play some chamber music. Oh, I'm playing flute at my church, and they would invite us, and what we have to look at as not a chore of, oh, I got to go by here to listen to some kids play, but they're welcoming us into their ecosystem to see what they're learning from with our four walls. What are they giving back out to the community? And it's starting to make sense to me on that. And then I just challenge our teachers out there. If your students are out there in their own ecosystem, we have to encourage that and support it and show up, because that will mean the world to them.
I love that contextualization, because if you're asking students to sort of bring their assets into your classroom, you need to be ready to exit the classroom and join them. It's, again, this very interesting balance. And I also really appreciate, Edrick, that you identified that it can feel like extra work. I have a good colleague that says collaboration and engagement and listening is way harder than doing it within a silo. It really is. Now, it's better, and it gives you, you have a better way of supporting students' full music lives. But it's hard, and it's okay to say that.
Yeah. Absolutely. To kind of go off on a tangent, I just have to ask this question because it's a great resource. Can you give us information about that cell phone data survey thing you were doing? Because that is just
I
great.
love it. It's called Poll Everywhere. And I really like it because it encourages us to be a little bit more dynamic. And also, if you're meeting with a group of teens,
yeah,
amazing. I got a message in the chat asking about how individual educators can think about how grading and deficit mindsets interact with this idea of asset-based ecosystem models.
Have at it.
That is a great question, because this is sort of where the rubber hits the road, right? You can say, oh, I love that my students bring various traditions and abilities that I don't grade on to the music classroom. This is where we start asking questions about what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and I mean, questions about grading and excellence. And I'm not going to answer this. Edrick, do you want to take a stab at this, because this is so contextual, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth by saying you should study one genre or another, because it's not about that. It's deeper.
Yeah, no, I don't have a one particular answer for that. I do believe that as music educators, we just have to keep ourselves open and really just be accessible for all opportunities that come to the table with our students, especially in these days. That's just critical to the forefront. I do have a question for you. When we talk about the active music life, and you mentioned the importance of balance and out of school and in school and less formalized, what do you find probably the most difficult of keeping that balance from your perspective, maybe in your community with the students? Is it out of school or is it within school? Like where do you see there's a imbalance that we have to be mindful of to balance?
So for me, this question digs directly into equity and access question.
Yeah.
So I will say that in New Haven specifically, we have been extremely fortunate to have full-time licensed music educators in just about every school. This is not the case necessarily. We're seeing lots of great resurgence, and I Chiho, who spoke earlier, talked about ways that people are reinvigorating, reimagining, and music education programs in school. but there's still going to be inequities. And so you'll notice that then sometimes we skew towards thinking, oh, an outside organization. If the kids just go to this creative development program, maybe it's not so bad that they don't have access to music education in their schools. Or we think, well, they get school education. So, it's, maybe they don't have the means to study the violin beginning at age -5. Just kidding, 3 maybe. But they have in-school music education. Or, well, I know that, Juan is really involved in music at his church. He doesn't really seem to be engaging in my music classroom. But, it's maybe that's just how he does music. And I think that invites us into it sort of is this, it's subtle, temptation into perpetuating inequities. And so for us, we tend to try to ask, does a student have every aspect of that active music life if they want to? And of course, the student doesn't have to do lots of music, although chances are they're listening to a lot of music on their headphones at the very least. But this, I think I think sometimes if something is imbalanced, we say, well, but they have the other thing. And that in itself is a perpetuation of systems that ultimately provide services or more well-rounded experiences to some students over others.
Absolutely. We have 2 more minutes, and I just want to go back and just thank you first for the Global Civics on Friday, the historical documents, articles 22, 27, 26. Can you reference those one more time? So if someone wants to get access to those again, you can share those.
Yes. So this is from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The other thing I will say is I was part of a previous project, and I'm going to put the link in the, if I can spell it correctly, into the chat, declaration.yale.edu. This is the original kind of project from 2017-18 that the Yale School of Music engaged in. And this is where we really dug into that human dignity thing, because especially maybe, particularly, with No Child Left Behind, we found so many people gravitating towards external justifications for music. And then like you all, there are plenty of people who are engaging with sort of these intrinsic reasons, like, creativity is good, life must be beautiful. But for us, we wanted something that we could sort of sink deeply into that could undergird all these other fabulous justifications. So if you're interested in exploring more about that Universal Declaration of Human Rights and this humanitarian justification for music, that's in the Declaration. The Declaration, I will say, is specifically geared towards city students and city schools. And that was a very specific and purposeful. I spoke more generally about ecosystems. So I just want to understand that there's not a privileging of one region or type of ecosystem, but just that each locality is different. And that in order to problem solve and connect ecosystems more deeply, we just need to be cognizant and accept context rather than try to sort of make these blanket statements that don't really have any teeth.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing such an interesting topic that's really trending through music education. On behalf of Nat King Cole Generation Hope, we thank you for being with us today.
Thank you all.
And now we will take a very short break. Stretch anything you need to do to refresh yourself for our final session of the day. You don't want to miss this. We have a guest artist. It's going to be exciting. We'll start promptly at 3 p.m. We'll be right back.